we think about implementing equity in our organizations, oftentimes we're thinking about it from a social perspective or a cultural perspective, but equity can also be implemented in our processes that are more functional, and we might not necessarily think, oh, yeah, equity belongs there. One that is most familiar that people will recognize is in pay structures, right? So you'll hear something called pay equity. And I want to talk a little bit about what pay equity is in terms of preparing for a process to engage with pay equity. The next series of talks that we'll have will be really looking at the spectrum and the different elements that will lead to pay equity. But in this video, I want to talk a little bit about what it means to prepare for that process. So, as an organization, if you are interested in having a pay equity process, you want to ensure that your organization has the necessary structures in place to be able to do a financial analysis. So you want to make sure that you have your people in place in your finance department, in your accounting department, but you also want to have the necessary partners to do your market analysis to make sure that you are at market rate or below or above. And you also want to understand how you're structuring your salaries. Are you banning them? Are they aligning to your value set? So it's really important to be able to think about, do we have all the information that we need? Another element is, are people ready to engage in the conversation? How comfortable is your organization talking about money? And I'm not talking about the money you get from funders or the money that you're giving out. I'm talking about the money that you spend within and the money that you use to pay your employees and your staff. If you're not comfortable talking about what you're earning, this is going to be a really hard conversation. And even though, especially if you're a nonprofit, you're able to access that information publicly, usually when it gets down to line iteming every staff member, that's usually not that kind of line of insight that people will typically have. But when you're talking about pay equity, you're going to probably need to be able to have those conversations. So if you're interested, stay tuned. We'll talk a little bit more about the pay equity process.